Lineup is probably the lineup in LCS that has the most planning to it. I see us going really far.
Of the LCS 2017 Spring Split. Week 3 of competition is about to get underway here in Berlin, and it's going to be a good one. Trust us on that one as we see Splyce and Yamato Cannon preparing to take to the stage Kavi, as well as Woma and his troops also preparing for match number 1. There they are in the huddle as well. Need to get the morale up before going on stage. Good evening, I'm EpicSkillshot, joined by Martin the Fish Show Lunge and Mitch Kreppel Voorspoels. Hello, gentlemen. Week 3 already.
Already?
It's going fast.
It is actually going very fast.
Yep.
Who's going to win the split?
The fans.
All the casters.
I felt a little bit like Who Is That Pokemon vibe when they came on the desk. You know, the
Who's
lights
that
were, Oh, it's the Fishio. Never mind.
Sadly. All right.
Weird track, you know.
Well, before we get into the games, let's look at the standings. As you asked him who wins the split. Well, if it would end now, G2 Esports and Unicorns of Love would have a pretty good chance. They are leading Group A and Group B respectively.
Yeah, and so far, I mean, I think well-deserved, both teams. G2, obviously, we expect them to be like the #1 team in Europe. Splyce has some catching up to do. They have a chance today, though.
Yeah, and after this week, every team will have played within their group, and next week we're moving to cross-group play, which is going to make it very exciting. I can't wait to see some of these matchups between Group A and Group B as well.
And some of those teams at the bottom really need to get some wins on the board.
I agree.
And we will be bringing you 2 best-of-3s this evening, starting, as said, with Splyce taking on the Unicorns of Love and Fnatic versus Misfits. And also, we are playing on patch 7.2 with Warwick enabled, so that might be another extra flavor that we'll see in the matches today.
I hear very mixed things about Warwick, and from own experience as well. He can be very annoying to play against, but I think in competitive, he has quite a lot of weaknesses, so I don't think we'll see him every game.
I think it's definitely possible for Warwick Jungle to make a really bad mid laner go 0-5 in the mid lane. If he's off-roll, that could happen. In competitive play, I actually don't know yet.
All right, well, we will see. Our first match pits Group B leaders, the Unicorns of Love against Splyce. First, let's talk about the Unicorns. They are 3-0. They are the leaders of Group B, but I think it's fair to say that there are a lot of varying opinions about their performance, about their style, and you guys wanted to break it down.
Yeah, the Unicorns. We talked about a lot of teams this week in the office, but the main talk was still around these, bandits of love and their style. There was pros, there were cons, and we tried to sum it up in basically 5 or 6 points that summarize the Unicorns right now. But Martin, because you're so negative, let's start off with the bad ones.
Yeah, I'm the negative. Okay, fine. One of the first bad ones we had is like the weak early game. You just saw on your screen the little lower third there saying that focus on scaling picks. It's something the Unicorns do a lot, and obviously that cost you early on. But also they do get ganked a lot and actually get caught a lot in these lanes here, especially Exile is a very easy target so far, dies a lot early, and that is a problem for the Unicorns.
Yeah, they need to shore up these weaknesses, because even when they get behind in the early game, they play the exact same way later on as they do in the early game, whether they're behind or ahead. So this is kind of weird. But their style is mainly centered around hard engages right now, because we see Hylissang here going in, but Exile's nowhere close, Samux is trailing, Xerxes isn't even a fight by the time Hylissang gets bopped, and that seems to be a weakness, this over-aggression.
Yeah, exactly, and it's often Hylissang who's actually the man like trying to start these fights. He plays on the edge quite often, and when the team is ahead and in control, he can really create some insane picks. But when they are behind, he ends up overextending. Very often he gets caught out, they die, and they fall further behind. And that is one of the big weaknesses for the Unicorns of Love lineup.
But yeah, then there is kind of a neutral point that we say you can interpret it positively or negatively, depending on how you look at it, is that the Unicorns of Love have zero hesitation. They're used to this style, and even when it backfires, they're still going to go in. And that is the beauty of it, because seemingly Hylissang here gets caught. Normally, a lot of people would let him die, move away, but they fight their way out.
They fight their way out. It surprised a lot of teams. Honestly, very few teams can actually go toe-to-toe in some of these fights here. And why we say it's both, you know, a positive and a negative in that sense is because sometimes when they do then pick the fight, it's actually the wrong time. And they end up losing out. But we have seen lately they've been winning a lot of these team fights here. And I think that comes down to our first of the really good points, which is the target selection in fights for the Unicorns of Love. Like, it is beautiful to watch how Exile and the rest of the team are able to kind of pick targets left and right and do it much better than most teams in Europe.
Yeah, they have the patience to wait to go in. Here they're playing a complex composition that I personally didn't like that much, but in review, if you have the patience and you go in and you get the resets, yes, you can argue educated and play it perfectly, but they bide their time, and then once the ball starts rolling, they clean up so well. And this target selection is the thing that is really hard to train and improve on as a team.
Yeah, we just saw Samux and Exile here literally hit the same targets all the time. Samux from very long range on Jhin, and then Exile, the guy finishing on Katarina. And that is fantastic synergy. The other really positive thing about the Unicorns of Love is like this very unique approach to the pick and ban phase, the compositions they play, and how to use them in game. It is so difficult to play and draft against because you don't really know what to expect. Like, we've tried to predict some of their things. Like, it's impossible because you look at like trends from everywhere else in the world, and then you try and put it into Unicorns, it never works. It's always different.
Whenever you preface the segments, Korea would pick this champion here. The Unicorns pick Ivern. Or they had this composition. I mean, maybe it's not as weird as a comp, but they really used Malzahar and Trundle well, because so often you're thinking about Malzahar, make a pick, but they were using the Trundle ultimate to just burn down the tanks with the Malzahar ulti, and they just play well as a team. So if they can shore up those early game weaknesses and maybe play sometimes meta, sometimes weird, I think they're definitely a top contender.
And with Warwick in there, they have another thing to put into the mix. A very nice breakdown of the positives, the negatives, and the neutral things, and we will be tracking this throughout their match as well. You heard what we think about the Unicorns of Love, and to hear about their opponent, Splyce, as